We are culturally obsessed with the idea of a massive, sudden payout. Most of us operate on the assumption that acquiring a giant pile of cash will instantly cure all of our problems. But empirical research reveals a phenomenon known as the Windfall paradox. When people win the lottery or receive a massive inheritance, they rarely experience a lasting boost to their mood. In fact, the opposite often happens. A sudden influx of massive wealth can lead to severe isolation, depression, and a complete loss of pleasure in ordinary, everyday activities. This reality has given us one of our most common cultural cliches, the idea that money doesn't buy happiness. But taking that phrase at face value is a dangerous misunderstanding of what money actually does. To figure out how to use wealth, we have to look at the data. First, we have to acknowledge the reality of financial scarcity. Some people suffer from a psychological pattern called money avoidance, a subconscious belief that money is unimportant or even inherently evil. Holding on to that belief leads to financial self-sabotage, an inability to stick to a basic budget, and chronic daily stress. A lack of money undeniably causes human suffering. You cannot afford food, shelter, or basic security without it. Plotting income on the horizontal axis and happiness on the vertical shows a sharp upward climb at the beginning. This financial baseline represents the minimum money required to cover survival needs, emergencies, and the stress of scarcity. Money is an absolute requirement to pull a person out of that baseline misery. But that leaves us with a mathematical problem. If money cures scarcity, why doesn't an infinite amount of money create infinite happiness? We can find the answer by looking at the utility curve of money. This chart tracks exactly what happens to our emotional well-being when our income finally exceeds our basic needs. As household income climbs, the line hits a very specific threshold, historically measured between $50,000 and $75,000 a year. Right at that mark, the trajectory abruptly flattens out. Even as the axis extends to the right, representing massive growth in income, the value for happiness barely moves. Doubling or tripling your earnings past this threshold yields almost zero proportionate increase in your daily emotional well-being. If someone is miserable earning $75,000 a year, acquiring a fortune will likely just turn them into a richer, miserable person. The empirical data proves that more money yields rapidly diminishing emotional returns. This forces us to rethink exactly how we allocate our surplus cash. So why do so many people ignore this data and mindlessly chase extreme wealth? Financial psychologists trace this back to money scripts, unconscious beliefs about money formed in early childhood. One of the most common is the money worship script. This is the deeply ingrained, false assumption that an increase in income will magically resolve our interpersonal conflicts and emotional problems. A close relative is the money status script, where individuals equate their intrinsic self-worth directly with their visible net worth. These scripts trigger a psychological trap called hyperbolic discounting. This simply means we prefer the immediate gratification of a quick reward over the delayed benefits of long-term stability. This pushes people onto the hedonic treadmill. The moment they cross the happiness threshold and have surplus cash, they immediately spend it on luxury goods to project an image of affluence. Allowing these unconscious childhood scripts to dictate our spending artificially inflates our lifestyle demands. It traps us in an endless cycle of consumption that prevents any true accumulation of wealth. If surplus wealth shouldn't go toward buying status symbols, what exactly should we be buying with it? In 1981, a psychologist named Angus Campbell published a comprehensive study on the actual drivers of human well-being. He found that happiness could not be universally grouped by a person's income bracket, their level of education, or their geography. If you look at this visual breakdown of his findings, you can see that factors like income and status are dwarfed by a massive variable, time autonomy. The greatest common denominator for human happiness is having a strong sense of control over your time. Money is not a finish line. It is a neutral tool, and the highest possible dividend it can pay is purchasing time. This goal of time autonomy stands in stark contrast to extreme money vigilance, the unhealthy habit of hoarding cash purely out of anxiety and fear. It also entirely rejects the money status trap of draining your accounts just to impress strangers. True financial independence means having the freedom to choose where you work, who you spend your day with, and exactly when you want to take a break. Everyday financial planning isn't about getting rich for the sake of it. It is about structuring your capital to maximize your personal independence. Do not use your money to inflate your lifestyle. Use it to buy back your life.